everyone, I'm Tizziana Cambiotti, registered dietitian at Provigo. Today we're talking about bread. You've probably noticed that there are just a few different options available for you on the shelves at your favorite grocery store. But which bread is right for you? Today we're going to look at a few tips on how to pick a bread. You've probably heard to choose a whole grain bread over a white bread. But why? What's the difference between these two breads? When we're looking at a whole grain, the whole grain has three parts. There's the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. The bran has all of the fiber and B vitamins. The germ has the antioxidants and healthy fats, and the endosperm is mostly carbohydrates in the form of starch. When we go from a whole grain to a refined grain, what we're doing is we're removing two parts of the grain. We're removing the bran and the germ, and what we're left with is the endosperm. So we're left with mostly the carbohydrates in the form of starch. We've removed the antioxidants, the healthy fats, the fiber, and the B vitamins. We do add back the B vitamins, but we don't necessarily add back the fiber. But one of the main differences between a whole grain bread and a white bread would be the amount of fiber. Whole grain bread does tend to have more fiber than white bread, and fiber does give us a ton of health benefits, such as feeling fuller for longer, helping to manage our blood sugar, helping to manage our blood cholesterol, and it can also be beneficial for gut health. Let's take a closer look at an example. So before looking at an example, you might notice that I'm not actually showing you the brand that I'm holding. This is because the brand of the bread doesn't actually matter. What matters most is what's inside the bread. So what we're going to look at first is the ingredient list. We would want to look for a bread that has integral flour or whole grain flour as the first ingredient in the list of ingredients. This would mean that the bread is in fact a whole grain bread. In this example, we could see that the first ingredient is water, then integral flour, and then whole grain flour with the germ. So this example is in fact a whole grain bread. Next, we would want to look at the Nutrition Facts Table. When we look at the Nutrition Facts Table, one of the first things we look at, of course, is the serving size. For bread, the serving size typically is 1 to 2 slices, and it also gives the serving size in weight. This is so that we could compare different breads of different thickness. In this example here, the serving size is 2 slices of bread, or 80 grams. It's important to look at the serving size because that means that everything under that serving size is for that amount of food. The next thing we would want to look at is the amount of fiber in the bread. To do this, we would look on the Nutrition Facts Table and go down to the amount of carbohydrates. Right under the carbohydrates, we see the amount of fiber. As a rule of thumb, we could use at least 2 grams of fiber per slice. This means at least 4 grams of fiber for 2 slices. In this example here, we have 6 grams of fiber for 2 slices. So this example does follow that rule of thumb. There is also some white bread that has fiber added to it. When the fiber is added to the white bread, you might notice that on the Nutrition Facts Table, the fiber amount is a little bit higher than usual. Even though the amount of fiber found in the product is a little bit higher, this fiber doesn't necessarily give us the same benefits as the fiber that is naturally present in whole grain bread. This is why it would be important to look for a bread whose first ingredient is integral flour or whole grain flour. The next thing that we could look at is the amount of sodium or salt in the bread. Typically, we usually don't find a bread with no salt in it at all. This is because the salt is used in the process to make the bread and to make it more shelf stable. The next thing that we would want to look at, ideally, is no added sugar. So in this example, we have 0 grams of sugar, so there's no sugar in this product. This would be for everyday breads. So breads, for example, that you're having as toast or in sandwiches. For other breads that you have more or less on occasion, if there is sugar in it, it's not the end of the world, but we're talking about those everyday breads. Ideally, we do want to reduce our consumption of added sugars. So if we could find a bread that doesn't have any added sugar in it, that would be a good option to go for. So the 4 main things that you would want to look at when choosing your bread is first the ingredient list. You would want to look for one that has integral flour or whole grain flour as the first ingredient in the list. Then we would go to the Nutrition Facts Table, look at the serving size, then go down to the amount of fiber, and look for one that has at least 2 grams of fiber per slice, ideally no added sugar, and if you are concerned about the amount of sodium in the bread, you could look for one that has less sodium. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you soon!